What's up? I'm your Elixir mentor, Jacob Blitzo. Today we're building our navigation bar. We'll set up our Tailwind configuration, define our project colors, and select our fonts. This step will infuse our brand identity into our application and lay the foundation for the following stages of development. Creating our navigation bar based off our designs is our goal today. So let's go ahead and get started. Just taking a quick look at our home page or our Create Gist design, we're going to be creating just the top nav bar here, but it will be reusable across all of our live views. And a few things we're going to want to do is we're going to set up our Tailwind config.js file with some of our colors that we use throughout this theme. So we have our dark color, which is black, dark gray, light gray. And then we have a purple, which you see in our gradient from lighter to darker. And then we also have a lavender that we use. And that is down here, like in our footer, that is a lavender color. And so we're going to make these all easier to access so we don't always have to use our hex values. We're going to set them as themes, our colors in our config.js file. We're also going to use work sans for our font, and we use bold and normal throughout. So we're going to set up a font family to do that. And then we're also going to have to create font face rules in our app.css file. And then we'll get into building out the HTML for our nav bar and getting our project all ready to go. So let's go ahead and jump in. I'm going to go ahead and just pull up my terminal and we'll cd into the project. Mine is in documents, develop, Elixir mentor, and then Elixir gist. And that is good for now. And then let's go ahead and open up our project. First things first is we're going to want to set up our Tailwind config file. And if we go into our assets, and right inside our assets directory, you'll see tailwind.config.js. Let's open that up. And right here, you're going to see theme, and then you're going to see that inside theme, we have extend, and then we extend colors. And extend basically just extends colors. So we're not overwriting anything. We're just adding to the colors that are already available with Tailwind. So we're going to add some things here, and I want to just go through what we're adding. We're going to add a dark color, our purple color, and our lavender color. And so if we go over here on the right side here, you see our 3 different black or dark colors we'll be adding, and then our 3 different purple colors, and then our 3 different lavender colors. So to add that, inside this curly bracket of colors, you have brand. Let's just delete that. And we're going to add our dark color. And I'm just going to prefix all of these with EM for Elixir Mentor, just so we don't have any conflicts. I don't think we will, but we're going to avoid that. So I'm going to do EM dark and then do a colon. And then we're going to do an opening curly brace, and it automatically curly brace. So now we can have our dark color, our default color, and a light color. And how we do that, so for our dark, it's just going to be black. So dark colon space, and then inside double quotations, we're going to do a hashtag, and then 010101, and then close those quotations, and then throw a comma in there. And that's our dark color. So now we can access black doing EM dark - dark. Okay, so that's pretty cool. And then for our default, so we don't have to do any, if we just do EM dark, if we do default here, all caps, default, colon, and this is going to be our dark gray, and that's hashtag 3C3B3B, and then close off that quotation, and then another comma. So now the default, if you don't actually say that you want dark or light, it will automatically be our default color. And we'll get into that in a little bit. And now we're going to have a light, and that is hashtag 8282, and then close those quotations. And that is our dark color. And then if we go underneath, let's add our purple, and I'm going to prefix it again with a EM purple, and then colon, and then let's do a curly brace. And now we're going to do our dark color again. So opening quotation, and then hashtag 631A61, close those quotations, comma, and then we're going to do our default color again, and that is going to be hashtag A834A5, and then we're going to do our light color, and that is going to be E88FE5. All right, and now we have one more color that we want to always have access to, and that's going to be our lavender. So EM lavender, colon, and then opening curly brace, and then dark again, opening quotations, and then we're going to do hashtag 8C52FF, close those quotations, comma, and then another default value here, and that is going to be 9D74EE, close those quotations off, and then comma, and then let's do our light, and that is going to be BC9AFF. Okay, now that we have our colors established, and now in the same file, we're going to add a definition for our font family and font weight, and we're going to be adding work sans to this project, okay? So outside of the curly braces of colors, you want to make sure it's not inside those colors, curly brace. We'll do a comma here, and we're going to add font family, colon, and then opening curly brace. And inside this, we're going to call this one brand. So whenever we're dealing with font, we will be able to call brand off that, and you'll see how that works in a minute. And then inside a square bracket, we're going to list in quotations the name of our font, and our font is called Work Sans, like that. What we're naming it here needs to match what we're going to be adding to our app.css file. So right now, just know that this camel casing Work Sans is how we are importing the font, okay? And then if this isn't available for some reason, if we don't have it in our static assets file and that can't be found, we want to have a default font sans serif, okay? So we're going to just do that. That's the fallback font, all right? After font family, throw a comma in there, and we're going to add another option for font weight, colon, and then opening curly brace. And now here we are going to have our font weight, and we just need normal and bold. So we're going to just type in regular here as one of our options, and this will be normal. And these string values are important, bold. They need to match the way that we're importing the font, okay? And we're going to get there in a second. Now that we added this to our Tailwind config file, now we need to actually import our font to our static assets, okay? I'm going to have a link in the description below to download these assets. So you can download the font, and you'll get a zip file, and you'll get this stuff right here. You're going to get our fonts and then our SVGs. So we're going to have an Elixir logo and our user image placeholder. Yeah, so everything that you need will be in this download link. So you can download that in the description below. And then what we need to do is open up our priv directory, open up that static, and then inside static, we're going to just drag our fonts right into that with the folder. We want it in a fonts folder, and then you want to see Work Sans bold and Work Sans regular. And now in our app.css folder or file, this is where we can add custom classes. And in this case, we're going to be adding font face rules. And in CSS, an @ rule is used to define custom fonts. So here we're going to be defining work sans font with 2 font weights, normal and bold, and they're going to be pointing to our .ttf files, which are font files, and those are located in the fonts directory in our static directory. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is do @font face and then opening curly brace, and then we do a font dash family, and this is the name that we added in our config file. So the camel case cap, so work sans, and the spelling needs to match what we have in our config file. And then we are going to put the source of this, and you're going to do URL, opening parentheses, and then inside quotations, we want to put the directory of our font, and that is inside fonts / and then the name of the font. And in this case, we're going to do our regular font first. So work sans, and you just have to match exactly the name of the file. And that is -regular.ttf, and then close those quotations and then the parentheses, and then do a semicolon at the end. And then we want to name the font weight. So font dash weight colon, and this is going to be normal. And then we also want to do font style colon normal. Okay. And so normal and this name match our font weight for regular, that calls normal. And then the name here, work sans, matches the font family name. And now we just have to repeat this. So I'm going to just copy and paste this one more time right underneath for our bold. And then all we have to do is rename the file name to match our bold file name. And then our font weight for this one will be bold, and style can stay normal as well. And then save it. And now we're ready to be able to use our custom font, which is pretty cool. And just to get it out of the way, let's go ahead and in the images directory here, just drag the 3 images in. You don't need the directory because we already have the images directory. And then once those are in, we'll have access to those as well. So now we're ready to get going with some HTML. Okay, let's make this full screen again. And now that we have our font family set up and pointing to where our font directory or our font files are, we have all of our brand colors and our font family here. So we're good to go. So now we can go ahead and close that config file. And we want to open up the lib directory, and we're going to go into the Elixir Gist web controllers, and we want to pull up our page controller. And we're going to be redirecting to our create Gist live view from here. But for now, what we want to do is we want to delete the layout false, because layout false actually prevents our, here, let me find it. Our, I think it's in components, layouts. So when this project loads, root.html.heex file loads, and then this inner content loads the app.html.heex, and then it loads our live view inside this inner content, right? So our nav bar and footer and everything that we want on all of our pages is going to be built in our app.html.heex file. Currently, we have inside controllers page._HTML. We have our home HTML page, and this is being called from our page controller. So it's rendering that HTML, and layout false means it's actually not calling our app.html.heex file, and it's just loading a custom static HTML page. And we don't want that because we're going to be going straight into a live view with our create gist. By default, they load a static HTML page for us, which is the home. And if let's go ahead and spin up our server. So mix space phx dot server. And now I think I have, if we go to localhost 4000, so this is a static HTML page. And then this register and login, oops, sorry, is actually in the root. And you'll see these links like log out, log in. And if the current user is nil or not, it shows us different things. So like there's no current user right now. So there's a login. We don't want that in our root.html. We're going to have everything in our app.html, and we don't need our home.html.heex file, but we don't want to delete it yet, because until we have our create gist LiveView to replace it with, we're going to just have it go here, but we don't need any of this HTML. So go ahead and hit Control Alt or A and delete it, and then save it. And we'll just have a blank screen, and we still have our register and login from our root.html.heex file. But anyways, back to page controller. So it loads our app.html.heex file. We're just going to delete the layout false and then save it. And then if we go back, we're going to see a couple more things that are now loading from what is currently in the app.html.heex file. So that's awesome, right? All right, let's clean up a few things, and then we're going to build out our nav bar. All right, right here, the live title, where it's a bullet or a dot Phoenix framework. Let's go ahead and just call this Elixir Gist. And then under here, the page title, where it is Elixir Gist, that's the name of our project. Let's just call that home. And then all this other stuff we're going to leave. We want to import our style sheet and all of that good stuff, right? We do want to, let's see, change our background color from white to our dark color. So we're going to do background dash, and this is how you call your custom classes or our colors from our config file. We can just do em dark dash dark. And now you can see that if we go there, the background's now dark, calling our black color that we put in our config file. And then everything inside of here. So inside this list, this UL, we're going to just delete this all the way down to the closing tag of our list. And we're going to leave the inner content, because the inner content then calls our app.html.heex file. And now inside of this, go ahead and Command All or Command A. I'm having struggles. And let's delete that and save it. And now if we go back to our local host, we have nothing, and it's just our black background. So that's all we're getting, and that's coming from our root.html.heex file now. And so now we are ready to build our navigation bar. To start with having a header, we can just use a header tag. All right. And everything within this is going to be in our header. Let's see. Let's go up inside, and we're going to type in class here, and then opening and closing quotations. And this is where we can call all of our Tailwind classes. And first we're going to do flex. And this sets the property allowing all items inside to be laid out in a row. Okay. And then we're going to do a justify between, and this horizontally distributes the child items with space between them. And then we're going to do an items center, and this will vertically align the child items to be center in the container. So on our Y, it'll be right in the center. And then we're going to do px-6, and this adds padding of 6 units. And then we're going to do a py-3, and that adds vertical padding of 3 units. And then lastly, we want to set the background color of our header. And so we're gonna do BG for background, and then just call our em dark, and we want our default value. We want our dark gray, because if you remember, where is our design? if you remember our design, so it's that dark gray color. So we'll go ahead and now save that. And if we go and look, and now we have our dark gray header. Okay, so that is the header div. And now everything that we put inside, we're going to create. So we're going to create a div tag for the left side of our nav bar components, and then a div tag for the right side. And let's go look at our design again. So the left side is going to be the Elixir logo, Gist, our title, this search input, and then this all gists button here. And then the right side is just going to have our profile button with that down arrow, and that will expand for our menu. Okay. So going back to our app.html file, inside our header, we want to have a div class, flex. So it's just using the flexbox layout. And then we also want to add relative. Relative positions the element relative to itself. So this is going to be the left div. So everything in here is what we see on the left side. So our logo, our title, our search input, and then the all gists button. So let's go ahead and place our logo now. First, we're going to use an anchor tag. Okay, and in this anchor tag, we want to link to our homepage. All we're going to do is use the tilde or sigil P outside of the quotations. And then we actually need to wrap this in curly braces. Whoops, I'm making a mess. All right, let's start over. We need our sigil or tilde. And then P, we need opening curly braces, closing curly braces, and then sigil or a tilde, P. And all this means is it takes a string value for the path that we want it to link to. Inside this, we're just going to do a / for the home page for now. Then inside this anchor tag, we want to have an image. And the source of our image is in our images directory. So we can just do / images, and it is called gist-logo.svg. And then the alt name for it, we'll just type in, it's our logo. Now we also want to have some Tailwind classes here, and we're going to set the height of our logo. So h-8, and that just sets the height to 8 units. And then the width, we're going to do auto. And this will automatically adjust the width to maintain the aspect ratio of the image. And then if we save it, now we see the Elixir logo. And it is also clickable and takes us to the homepage. And that's what the anchor tag does. All right, so now let's add our title. So we're going to do another anchor tag, just like we did above. In fact, I'm going to just copy and paste this. We're going to also have it reference the home. And then next to this, we can also have a class, and we're going to do mr-6. And what this is doing is giving us a margin on the right side of 6 units. And then instead of the image here, we're going to just have a div, and we're going to have white text, and then we also want the font to be brand. And if you remember, we added that on our config file. So we have our font brand, and then we also want this to be bold, so font bold. And all this we already set up in our Tailwind config when we added our font family. So font bold. And then we also want our text size to be 3XL. In between the opening div and closing div, we want the title, which is gist. All right, and we save that. So we added our custom font, we added our title, and we added margins. And now if we go ahead and look at what we did, there we go. We have that's looking pretty good. So we have our logo now on the left side. All right, moving on. Now we have to do our our search field. Underneath this anchor tag, we want to stay in the left div. So we want to make sure we're still in this flex relative. We're going to put the search field input and the all gists in another div because we want to have the spacing that we see on the left side and the right side to kind of be the same, but we want the logo, the Elixir logo and the gist title to be closer because we kind of want it to look like one logo, right? So we're going to go ahead and make a div here. Whoops. And now inside the div, we can do our input. And the type is going to be text. And then we can do class. All right, so now we're just going to, we basically just want to make our input look like our design. So we want to have the placeholder search, the white border, and then when it's highlighted, we'll have our lavender border. So it matches all of our theming. Otherwise, by default, it would be a blue. So that's what we're going to do right now. So inside this, first of all, we want to have rounded corners. So we're going to do rounded and we want large. And if I hit save, we'll see this. Okay. So you see our input field right there. And here, I just want to get rid of rounded so you can see it before we start changing things. All right, so it's square and it's quite large. But so now we're going to put in rounded with large corners. And we want our focus outline to be none. So basically when it comes into focus, like if you were like tabbing through, we don't want it to be highlighted. So that's none. But then we want our focus border. So when it's clicked on, we want that to be our EM lavender color. And we want it to be our lavender default color. There we go. And now if we come and highlight it, you see the lavender around the edge. Really cool. And now we want our focus ring to be 0. And we want some padding on the x-axis of 3 units, padding on the y of 1 unit. And these are just values that I messed around with until it looked like the design. HTML is definitely not my strong suit, so don't tear me up too bad if you wouldn't do things this way. But that's all I do is I've messed around with it until I was happy with how it looked. And then we're going to set the background color. So BG-EM dark, and then we want it to be black. So our dash dark. And now let's go ahead and look at that. And there we go. So now we have our white line around it and it's focus, or, when it's selected, we have our lavender focus color. So we're getting there. And now we want our placeholder text. So placeholder to be the EM, we want it to be our light dark. And then we want our text, our search text to be white. And then we want our font to be our brand font. And we want our font to be our regular weight. And we want our text to be small. And then we want some margin on the right of 5 units and our border color to be white. And I think that is it. Let's save it and see what it looks like. All right, really sweet. So that's working, that's looking good. It definitely needs to possibly move down a little bit, but we can worry about that in a second. So now we need to have our placeholder. And so that we can just do placeholder equals, and that will be search ... So this is starting to look good. And now we need our button to the right side of all gists, and we'll add that now. So underneath this input, let's do a button, and in between these two tags, just say all, capital all, and then lowercase gists, and then we can save it and see that pop up. And now we just need to make it our font and colors. So inside the first button tag, let's do class equals, and then opening and closing quotations. And we can do, all right, so now in the class, let's go ahead and we're going to just add some margin to the top of 2 units, margin to the right of 2 units. And we want our text to be white and our text size, in this case, small, or I kind of just was going off. So I wanted it to look as close to the designs as possible. And so we just have to do 1 rem here inside of square brackets. And then our font is our brand font. And we want this to be bold. So font dash bold. Let's go ahead and save that and take a look. There we go. So that's looking pretty good. And it's using our font because the lowercase g is very obvious. So this looks awesome, right? Let's go ahead and, yeah, let's say we're looking good. We should probably add like a hover over color to it. So if we hover over it, it should turn to our nice little dark gray or something. So let's go ahead and after bold, do hover colon, and then we can do text dash em dark. And then we'll do our light gray. So it'll be subtle, but it'll still be more, there we go. See, then you actually feel like it works. And then we have our lavender outline and our logo. So this is looking good. Now we just have to do the right side, which is the little circle around a profile picture with a downward arrow. So let's go ahead and do that. Now we want to go on the outside of this div. So right above our closing header tag, right here, we're going to create our next div class. So let's, we just want this one to be relative. And so relative just positions the element relative to itself. Inside this, we're going to have another button. This button type, let's see, we're going to have our classes to format it. And our button type is button. We're going to have an ID on this, and this isn't going to be useful right now, but in our next video it will be, because we're going to be adding some click actions with a JS toggle. So we're going to actually be animating our drop-down menu, and you need an ID for using those. Within our button, we want to add our image. And the source of our image is in our static images directory. So /images. And the placeholder is called user-image-svg. And then our alt text for this can be profile image. And let's go ahead and also have a class here, because we can establish the width and height. And we're going to say the width is 8 and the height is 8. And now let's go ahead and go look at it. And I broke something. Let's see. I have a double quotation. Thank you, linter. All right, so save that again. There we go. So we have our placeholder image. So now what we need to do is we need to get a circle around it, and then we need our little down arrow. So to do the border, we could just add a border and make a white line and have it go around our image, but it would be exactly on the edges of our image, right? So we want to have some margins involved. So instead of just adding it to this image, I want to create a CSS class that we can use that adds a little bit of padding to make our image smaller than the border. So let's go to our app.css file. And we're going to make our first custom class. And to do that, we will do dot and then the name of the class. So round dash image dash padding and then opening curly brace. And now we can just add our options. So our border dash radius colon is going to be 50%. And this rounds the corners of the element to create a circle shape. So it's exactly like 50%. So each corner goes, if that makes sense, right? Yeah. Okay. Whoop. We have a typo in there. So our border radius is 50%, which makes a circle. And then our border is going to be 1.5 pixels thick. And we want it to be solid. And we want it to be white. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 Fs, semicolon. And now our padding, which will make the image inside the border a little bit. And we can mess around with this, but let's start with just 2 pixels. All right, and we save this. And now we can just add this class to our image class. So let's see, right before our width and height, now we can just call our round dash image dash padding class, just like that. Save it. And there we go. We have a circle around our image, and you can see that there's a 2 pixel padding. And just to show you how that works, if we go back to our CSS file, I don't know, let's make this 4 pixels, whoop, not 20, 4 pixels, save it. And then you'll see a little more cushion. And actually, maybe we'll go with that because I kind of like that. And now we have to add our down arrow to the right side of this button. And we're going to create a class just like our round image padding. So we're going to say dot img dash down arrow. And we're going to do a class that targets, basically we're going to do colon after, and then opening curly brace, closing curly brace. All right. So after is a pseudo element within an element in the class. And the after basically will insert this content after whatever it's on. So if we attach it to our button, it's going to go after it. So that is to the right side, right? So that's what we want. Inside this, we kind of have to do hacky stuff. So we're going to do content, colon, and then an empty string. The position of this, we want the position to be absolute. So this basically makes this position static. So we're putting it exactly where we want this down arrow to be. And then we can control that with, so right, we're going to do negative 10 pixels. And these values I just messed around with until I was happy with them. And then we can do a top, and we're going to set this to 45%. And this positions the element 45% from the top boundary of its containing element. So from the top of the button, we're coming down 45%. All right. And then we're going to do a transform and a translate Y of negative 50%. And what this does is this is going to translate the element vertically upward by 50% of its own height. So combined with the top 45%, this will vertically center this item that we're placing to the right side. So we're essentially drawing a triangle. So that's center to the button to the right side with these two things, okay? And then our border width, this is important. So if you just put one value here, they'll all be the same, but you can also name them all separately. So we're going to define each side of our border. So we want it 3 pixels, 3 pixels. So 0 here, and that's going to make a triangle. So, and then 3 pixels. And then we also want our border color to be white, and then transparent, transparent, and transparent. And so this defines the border color of each side. So the top, right, and bottom are going to be transparent. Okay. And then the left border is white. And this creates the appearance of pointing downwards. And then we also need to do our border style. And this is going to be solid because we want it to be a solid line. So now this should draw an upside down triangle to the right side of whatever element we attach it to. So image down arrow, if we go back to our app.html.heex file, and then we find our button here. And in our class, if we do image down arrow and save it, now we have a down arrow. Let me zoom in on that. So there we go. That's pretty sweet. And this is all clickable within the button. So we will be hitting a JS toggle, which will expand our drop-down menu in our next video. That's pretty sweet. We just created our navigation bar, and this will now show up on all of our live views just like that. So in our next video, we'll be creating the drop-down menu. And yeah, so we learned how to set up our Tailwind config.js file. We created some Tailwind classes or CSS classes, and then we built our navigation bar. So if you need help or want to check out the solutions, check out the GitHub link in the description. Join my Discord server, Elixir Mentor. If you have any questions or just want to hang out and chat, that link is in the description as well. If you want to learn how to build scalable, production-ready, full-stack, and REST API solutions, hit that subscribe button now. I'm Jacob Blitzo, your Elixir Mentor. See you in the next video.